Hello, my name is Erika Flores. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I am Mexican-American. Both my parents were born in Mexico. My dad is from Zacatecas and my mom is from Guanajuato. I graduated from a very small private university called St. Xavier in Chicago, and I recently graduated from McKinney School of Law. So I graduated from St. Xavier with a degree in business finance. My college experience was a little bit different than everyone else's because I actually worked full-time while going to school full-time. So my weeks were extremely busy, they were very hectic. And now that I look back, I'm like, I have no idea how I did that. But you do what you have to do when you really want to do it. And so I was working about 40, 50-hour weeks and I was going to school in the afternoon. Fortunately, I was able to graduate college within the 4 years, so the expected time. And then once I graduated college, I was working downtown Chicago for an investment consulting firm. And once I did that, I got really great experience, and after working for a few years, I realized I was missing something and I wanted something more. And as important as education is to me and my family, I knew it was about time to go back to school. And at that point, I wasn't sure whether I was going to go back and get a master's or whether I wanted to go to law school. But I have a really great mentor that I talk things through, and at the end of the day, I realized that law school was the best decision for me. And so one of my biggest things was I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know, I don't have anyone in my family that's an attorney. I'm a first-generation graduate student. I didn't have that, I guess that mentor, that specific person that I could go to and talk to and ask all of these questions, at least not in my family. So I decided, again, I wasn't 100% sure if law school was for me, but my philosophy was very much, I didn't want to look back in a few years and wonder, what if I would have done it? I just didn't want to have any regrets. So the way the whole law school thing, the whole process started is I actually was like, you know what, let me just start studying for the LSAT. I may love it, I may hate it, but let me just get the ball rolling and I won't know until I do it. So, during this time I was actually working, like I mentioned, I worked 4 years before studying for the LSAT. So I was working full time and then I was studying for the LSAT at night. So I was working about 40 to 50 hour weeks, and then I would come home, go to the library, and fortunately my library was open until midnight or 1 a.m. so I was able to pack in a few hours after work and then study over the weekend. And then lo and behold, I took the LSAT, and then I did pretty well, and then I got my score, and I was like, I think I could do a little bit better. So I took it again a few months later, and at that time is when I actually found out about McKinney. McKinney has a great alumni base back in Chicago, and there's a partner that's an alumni from McKinney that he's really passionate about getting people from Chicago over here to the law school. So he hosted an event, and that's actually where I met Dean Klein, the dean from our law school, at this event, and he was just so personable and just very encouraging. And at that point, I had met, the dean, professors, current students, and I just loved the community that they offered, that they brought. And so that was the first time that I heard of McKinney, and at that point, I was like, I'm going to that law school. I'm absolutely going to that law school. So at that point, I applied to McKinney, and I actually I put my application as early admission. And I didn't really know what early admission was. At that point, I was like, great, I'll find out the decision earlier than everyone else. But later on, once I should have looked at the small little font, and then I realized that by selecting early admission, it was going to be my first and really only choice if I were to get accepted into the program. And so that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, oh no, what if that's not the school for me, But I went back and I thought about the experience that I had at the networking event, and I knew that was a community that I really wanted to be in. So So overall, it was a very interesting, not the most, it wasn't the typical experience. I know a lot of individuals go straight after undergrad, but for me personally, it took a few years for me to realize that. And I think it's fine for it to take a few years, because it's one of the biggest commitments and one of the biggest decisions that you're going to make. It's such a big investment in yourself, and you need to be sure that you want to do it. And like I said, for me, I just wanted to be 100% sure and dedicated, and I couldn't be happier with the decision of going to law school. So as I mentioned, I actually worked a few years before coming to law school. I did investment consulting, and one of the things that I specialized in was helping invest foundation's money. So one of the clients that we had and that I helped out was Make-A-Wish. And so I worked directly with a lot of individuals or executives at that foundation. And ironically, you know, one day after coming from a business meeting, they actually gave one of my coworkers came from a meeting, and he said, oh, you know, they really like the work that we're doing. They wanted to give you a gift, a small little token of their appreciation. And it actually ended up being, you know, the smallest little nugget. It was about this small, and it was actually a wish token. And the wish token that they gave me was actually the same wish token that they give all of the kids that walk into the doors of Make-A-Wish. And majority of the time, those kids, you know, that is their last wish. So so my coworker, kind of my manager, supervisor, he gave me this, and they said they wanted you to have this for your good job, for all the work that you've done on this assignment, you know, so on and so forth. And then he knew that I was considering going back to school, and you know, he kind of tugged at me, and he's like, here's your, you know, your wish token. And he looks at me, and he's like, maybe it's a sign that you need to make your own wishes come true. And I was like, oh no. I was like, ah. And you know, that kind of tugs at you a little bit. That's one of those where, you know, unfortunately, those kids that I was helping raise money, making those wishes come true, they didn't have that decision. They didn't have that choice. And here I am with all the abilities in the world and all the resources in the world to make my own wishes come true. So at that point is when I realized that I wanted to go back to school. At that point, I still hadn't realized law school, but I did know that I wanted to do something more. And I was able to take control of, you know, my life and where my career was going, and, you know, just fulfill the dreams that I truly wanted. And at that point, I knew something was missing, and I needed to make a decision. Do I go to, what type of grad, do I go to medical school? I knew medical school wasn't for me, but do I go get my master's? Do I go to law school? And so that same coworker that I was working on the Make-A-Wish project that brought back the token, you know, I very much consider him my mentor. He's the one that kind of pushed me in the direction because he knew that I wanted more, and because he saw that I was capable of more. It's a mentor that I greatly appreciate. His name is Bill Parker, and everyone needs a Bill Parker in their life. And what I mean by that is he pushed me, and he made me believe that I could do it even when I didn't. I told him, like, I don't know, Bill, I don't know if law school is for me. And he's like, why? Why not? I was like, I just don't know. He's like, but why? I don't know. And I was like, I don't think it's in the cards. I don't come from a family of attorneys. I didn't really consider it, you know, a few years ago, maybe just a little in the back, but it's one of those like, you know, whether you think about it and making it a reality is completely different. But at the end of the day, he's like, why? Why can't you do it? And I didn't have an answer. And that was his point. That was the point. I didn't have an answer as to why I couldn't. It was more so the fear of not being able to do it. And at that point, you know, Bill sat me down, and he's like, if this is what you want to do, then you need to do it. And if you need any resources, and if you need my help, then I will help you in any way possible. So I attribute, you know, stepping into, you know, deciding to go into law school to him, because he pushed me into something that I myself don't know if I would have had the courage to do on my own. And I think that's the reason why it's extremely important to find mentors, to be able to push you sometimes when you don't think that you're capable of doing it. And I think that's one of the biggest issues is people have self-doubt. We're our biggest critic, at least I am. I mean, there's a lot of times where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that. But, you know, just having someone there to be able to, you know, kind of hold your hand, or being able to guide you in the right direction, or kind of give you that push or that nudge that sometimes we all need. is, you know, what kind of helps everyone out, at least for me. I had my Bill Parker. Bill Parker was, like I said, a great influence on me, and he, if I ever had any issues, if I ever wanted to vent, if I ever had self-doubt, if I ever needed, you know, a confidence booster, if I, you know, for anything, I knew that I could go to him, and it was very much a no judgment zone. He let me rant, he let me get emotional, he let me say whatever I needed to say and get it off my chest. He was very much a sounding board. And sometimes you find mentors in the most unexpected places and the most unexpected times. You know, like I said, Bill was a good coworker of mine, where he was actually a supervisor of mine. I believe his father is an attorney, and he said, and he's the one that told me, like, the last thing that you want to do is not pursue your dreams and have regrets later on. And he was right. You know, one of those where I had worked a few years, and at this point I didn't have any real commitments per se, like I didn't have a family of my own or anything like that. And if there was any time that I was going to take that chance, it had to be, you know, at this time when I started applying for the LSAT and started applying for law school. So I very much recommend that everyone go get a mentor. Or I wouldn't say go get a mentor, because most of those relationships just build naturally, I would say. You realize over time who you're comfortable talking to, who you want, who you can lean on, who you can trust, and who can really pull you up and help you out. I think a lot of times we underestimate the people around us, or not that I don't want to say underestimate, but I think sometimes we feel we don't like to ask for help. And we don't want our burdens or our issues to we don't want to bring that upon other people. And I think you would be pleasantly surprised as far as how many people are out there willing to mentor you, willing to give you advice, and really wanting to cheer you on in the process.